Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome APTA Chair Nuria Fernandez.
Good morning, APTA. It's so wonderful to see all of you here. It's Wednesday. It's been a long week, but it's been a great week. This transformation conference is turning out to be an absolute success. So thank you for joining us this morning. So this is what we typically call our wake-up breakfast, and today we're going to be talking about women and how they influence and their power. Today's breakfast is sponsored by Proterra. So before I begin, I would like to introduce someone who epitomizes what we'll be discussing today. The International Chair for the Women's Transportation Seminar, Maggie Walsh, who is also the Vice President for HDR. I am so honored that Maggie is here with us because she is a dear friend. So without further ado, Maggie Walsh. Darling. Okay.
Morning. So to our speakers, Nuria, on behalf of WTS International, we are thrilled to see you in the lead role as chair for APTA. You are a leader, a role model, and a friend to many of us WTS sisters, and we wish you great success in all that you will accomplish in your year ahead. To our other speakers, Acting Administrator FTA of the FTA, Jane Williams, thank you for your leadership and your persistence in DC. And to Polly and Ronnie, thank you for the warm welcome here in your bustling city, and we really do look forward to all of their comments in a few moments. WTS and APTA have a living and dynamic memorandum of understanding, and I'd like to just share a few highlights of that document. It's there to increase the access of information about professional development and career opportunities for our respective organizations. It's to facilitate and expand the dissemination of these opportunities to both of our members. And it's to continuously seek opportunities to strengthen and enhance the cooperation to pursue healthy goals for our women in the industry. So we want to focus on the how and the how well we are doing. Both of our organizations have strong leadership programs, and we will continue to promote them to each other's members as we constantly look for opportunities to enhance the skills and talents of our women. To demonstrate this point, let's conduct a short exercise. So all of our Fitbits and our devices on our wrists will really enjoy this exercise. So for women only, if you have been in the transit industry for 10 years or less, please stand. You are the group that we are cultivating and nurturing in the industry, and we want to see you stay standing. You are our newest group to the industry. So, the next group, if you have 10 or 11 years to 25 years in the transit industry, please stand. Okay. You are our project leaders, our project managers and leaders who are looking for opportunities to continue the growth of our industry. So for all of you who are standing, remember those that stood before you. You are their mentors. Okay, stay standing. If you've been in the industry for 26 years or more, please stand. Okay. Okay, you are the experienced and wise ones. We look to you. We look to you to be our mentors for everyone in this room. This is the power of what a connected network looks like. In fact, this is the power of WTS. So I'd like to leave you with this. When someone asks you, what does WTS stand for? Let them know WTS stands for Equity and Access for All Women in Transportation, and it will take all genders, all professional organizations, and intention to make that a reality. Thank you.
Please welcome our session sponsor, Ryan Popple, CEO of Proterra, Inc.
Well, good morning, and thanks for joining us for breakfast and for this incredibly important panel on women transforming transportation. I'm Ryan Popple. I'm the CEO of Proterra. We're the sponsor for this morning's event. And we're very excited about this topic in particular, partly because environmental sustainability is such an important rationale for public transit, as well as what we do in terms of EV manufacturing. You may ask, well, why are you talking about environmental sustainability when this is a panel on empowering women in transit and powerful female leaders in transit? Well, the reality is when you look at the strategies to improve environmental sustainability and combat climate change, on almost all the global surveys, consistently in the top 10 strategies for combating climate change is the empowerment, the education, the participation of women in the workforce. And so globally, as more women take leadership positions in government, in the private sector, we are much more optimistic about the future of the planet, the future of the environment. So at Proterra, we are committed to providing opportunities for all of our employees and for creating the most diverse and resilient teams possible. From the C-suite to the manufacturing floor, we've built strong, diverse teams, and we are committed to providing the best opportunities in technology and transportation for the women in our organization. A very tangible example of that is the work we've done with Daughters of Rosie, which is dedicated to ensuring that we have gender diversity in roles like manufacturing and engineering. So without further ado, we're going to roll a quick video here that celebrates our 100th EV fleet customer for Proterra. And as part of that, we want to recognize and remember the absolutely essential role that women have played in the early adopter transit agencies and within our organization to advance the cause of zero-emission vehicles within public transit. So thank you very much again for joining us for this important session, and I look forward to hearing from the speakers.
In 2004, Darren Hill embarked on a mission to redesign the transit bus from the ground up to be electric, and Proterra was founded. 5 years later, the first Proterra buses hit the roads as forward-thinking transit agencies took a chance on new technology. Together with our customers, Proterra has continued to innovate and improve on those first buses, creating an electric bus for all transit routes. Several years of feedback from our customers resulted in North America's most popular electric bus, the Proterra Catalyst transit vehicle. But we didn't stop at the bus. Proterra also introduced heavy-duty charging systems and energy solutions, enabling customers to implement their first deployments and to plan ahead for 100% electrification. Today, more than 100 transit operators across North America have partnered with Proterra for their electric fleets. The future is electric, with more than 45 cities across North America already committed to 100% zero-emission bus fleets. Agencies across the continent are working hard in planning, training, and implementing electric fleets. Proterra is here to help every step of the way. Thank you to our customers for leading the transition to clean, quiet transportation for all.
Please welcome our 2020 annual meeting and expo host, Daryl Johnson, Chief Executive Officer, Orange County Transportation Authority, and the 2020 Expo Chair, Ann Derby.
So good morning, APTA. As Expo's first woman chair, it's gratifying to be here today before the Women in Power session to invite all of you on behalf of APTA's business members to next year's Expo in Anaheim to see and connect with what is next. So as you came in, you might have noticed that you all got a very functional visor. This is our Not only a very cool visor, but it could be your ticket to next year's expo. This would include airfare, hotel, and registration. So how do you get a free trip to Anaheim next year, you ask? All you have to do is wear your visor, post to social media, hashtag APTA Expo, and you could be going to Anaheim for free. If you're not able to get your visor today because maybe you did a little too much shopping and have nothing left in your suitcase, then not to worry. You can pick it up at any of the next 3 APTA events. Legislative Conference in March in DC. You can pick it up in Mobility Conference in San Antonio and the Rail Conference in San Francisco. Our website has gone live now, so be sure to check out the website at aptaexpo.com for all the latest information. We look forward to having Anaheim host us, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to Daryl Johnson.
All right, great. Thank you, Ann. Don't forget your visor. I have an extra one here if anyone needs it. Being in New York has been an absolutely outstanding experience, and we want to thank our host agency, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, for all of their hard work and dedication to putting on such a great conference. So please join me in giving them a round of applause. And as Ann mentioned, we're very, very excited to announce and support APTA's Expo in Orange County in the city of Anaheim next year. It's a very exciting time to be part of transportation, and it's an honor to be hosting that prestigious conference at such a pivotal time for our industry. We're thrilled to showcase the many attractions and things that we have in Orange County to host you next year, but it is 12 months from now, so to tide you over during the next 12 months, we prepared a short video to get you excited, put your visor on, and win that free trip. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you in Anaheim next year.
Thanks to our co-host, the Women's Transportation Seminar, also to our session sponsor, Proterra, our 2020 annual host, meeting host, Daryl Johnson, and our 2020 chair, Ann Derby. So each year at our annual meeting, APTA features dynamic women who have blazed trails, who have removed debris, and also lifted boulders so that others could follow. This year is no exception. So please help me in welcoming MTA Managing Director Ronnie Heckham, New York City DOT Commissioner Polly Trottenberg, and FTA Administrator Jane Williams. So hello, ladies. How are we doing?
Good morning.
I know that most of you in the audience have seen us up here multiple times this week. But you know, sometimes you have to pause and get a chance to know the women behind the title. And these are all very impressive women who have had a wonderful journey. Most of us have been following that journey. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for transportation, public transportation in particular. So, Jane, how did we get here?
Well, my path was pretty non-traditional. I started my career in Washington working for Ronald Reagan right out of college. I worked for him as well as George Herbert Walker Bush. When he was not reelected, I started a family and left the workplace for about a dozen years. I stayed involved in campaigns, raising money, but my focus was on my children. And when I went through a separation and divorce, I decided I wanted to come back to DC and went back to work on the Hill and in a very junior role because I needed a door open to me. I started doing transportation type issues for Andy Harris, and I worked there about 5 years under the Chief of Staff, Kevin Rygert, and I didn't want to leave the Hill. I was quite happy doing what I was doing when he called me and said, I need you to come to the Maryland DOT. And I said, I don't want to come to the Maryland DOT. I like where I am in Washington. I'm a Washington City kind of girl, even though I grew up in Maryland. And he said, no, I'm serious. The governor needs your help with the WMATA system and our investment there. And at the time, to be honest, I didn't know anything about WMATA. And so I said, no, I don't want to come. So then he implored 2 other people to call me and say, you need to just come for the interview so you don't look bad. So I went up and I interviewed. and he had a very dear friend of mine, Dennis Schrader, come to me and said, you need to do this. We need you. There's been 5 or 6 people that said it has to be you. And I remember thinking, why does it have to be me? I don't know why it has to be me. But so it was very non-traditional. I'd done transportation, I'd done some transit, but I grew up on the Eastern Shore. So there's no railroad on the Eastern Shore. But I had the pleasure of working with Paul Wiedefeld at WMATA. He came there shortly after I started at Maryland to run the system, and I learned a lot about what I know about rail from him and his leadership there. And so I've been grateful for that across my career, and he's taught me a lot. So it was a non-traditional road, but here I am, and didn't expect to be in this role when they called me. I hadn't even put my resume in. And they said, we need you to come to US DOT. And I said, I kind of like where I am. Jobs sort of find me. And so they said, you know, we'd like you to be the administrator. And I said, no, I don't think so. I'm not sure that that's the right fit for me. I can do a lot of other things. I could do intergovernmental. I work in the state. I can work in the feds. And they said, no, we want you to run FTA. And I said, you know, 2 years in transit does not an administrator make. I'm very much a realist about what I can and cannot do. And so they said, well, why don't you think about it? They called me back in and they said, no, we really want you to do this. And I said, I really don't think I want to go through a Senate confirmation. And so they said, how about the deputy role? I said, okay, I can do that. That's the managing inside role, doesn't require Senate confirmation. I said, you know, I've managed a lot of things. I can manage that. So then they swore me in and they said, congratulations, acting administrator. And I was like, So now we know that in order to get you to do a job, we offer a job you don't want to do.
So, you know, of course, none of us graduates from college and says, okay, I want to get into public transportation. But we end up here somehow. So, Ronnie, tell us about your journey.
So my journey began, I'm looking out at everybody in this room and I'm thinking, there are so many people here who have been so committed to public transportation, transit issues. Me, I just needed a job. And so I started in New York City Transit within the MTA family in 1987 because I needed a job. And it turns out that it was a job that I loved. And what I love as you travel around New York and you travel our system, and I hope many of you have had the opportunity to take advantage of that over the last several days, you appreciate how much a part of this city our transportation system is. And in the role that I have now as the managing director, it's fantastic because I now have a very regional view of things. And I, had the opportunity to work for several years in New Jersey, running a series of toll roads there, as well as an arts center, which is an odd combination. And New Jersey Transit, back to New York, back to the MTA. And so Nuria, I think everybody's journey is different. And for me, it has been nothing but a series of fulfillments. And I've enjoyed every single day.
Well, that's great to hear. Polly, you had the power of the pen up in Congress, and you decided to make a leap of it. So tell us about that.
Well, it's true, and actually I had started my transportation career with a couple port authorities. I worked at Massport when I was in graduate school, and then the Port Authority here in New York. But it's true what Nuria says. I found my way down to Washington working for, I think I described him the other day as the patron saint of transportation here in New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And then Chuck Schumer and Barbara Boxer, and 12 years on Capitol Hill, and it's true, did a lot of work on transportation reauthorizations and a lot of the great fights. The fight that I probably devoted most of my energy to was making sure that transit got its fair share of the funding, so that was always a passion for me. We should clap for that one.
Thank you,
And after all those years on Capitol Hill, was lucky to get the opportunity to join the Obama administration at USDOT as Assistant Secretary for Policy and Undersecretary. And one of the things we saw in the Obama administration, I used to joke, because you had a lot of Capitol Hill staffers who joined the administration, some of them are here today, and then a lot of people who, as I like to say, knew how to run stuff. I'm on stage with a few of them. And we were a good combination. We a great synergy there, but I sort of started to say to my husband a few years in, I want to be one of those people who knows how to run stuff. And he said, okay, honey, good luck. And then a few years in, I happened to hear that there was potentially going to be a new mayor here in New York, and I'm from here, and I said, I'm gonna toss my resume into the pile, and we'll see what comes of it. And then he said, okay, I think this is going to be fateful. And sure enough, it was. And so I've had the opportunity of a lifetime to come here and be the city's transportation commissioner, and definitely get to run stuff. And there is nothing like it. A lot of the people in this room know the feeling of having to be on the line every single day, delivering, but feeling the impact of your work for everyday citizens and travelers. So it's been an amazing career that I could never have dreamed of when I started out.
Well, all three of you are doing some amazing, powerful things. So we are, again, grateful to you. But you also have to bring people with you. And Jane, as we look at your senior staff, we're very impressed. So tell us a little bit about how you empower, how you attract such great talent, and how do you give all of those women in your organization the opportunity to shine?
Well, I have a great person to learn from and have learned from, my mentor, Secretary Elaine Chao. She is in her second cabinet secretary role, having served her entire 8 years of George W. Bush's term as the Secretary of Labor. And, I watch what she does a lot. That's how you learn. You can learn through words, you can learn through reading, you can learn a lot through watching. And one of the things that she has really done at the USDOT is to empower a lot of women and minorities. And when you look across our senior review and team lead meetings, we are a very complex organization, and everyone is represented. She's very collaborative. She wants to hear everyone's view. Of course, when she makes the decision we all get in line and we move forward. But I learned from her how important that is, because everybody has a different viewpoint. Everybody brings something different to the table because their background is different than mine. And so I've tried to look for that as I've led FTA. And one of the people that stood out immediately to me, I think, so Matt Welbus, I tell this story a lot. So Matt Welbus wanted to see me when I had to get my fingerprints done. And in my other job, I came in my first job at Maryland, the person that was working as the CFO for our office resigned. And I was like, it's my first day. You're seriously turning in your resignation. So they said, Matt Welbus would like to see you when you come in for your fingerprints. And I got this awful feeling like, oh my God, he's not going to resign, is he? And all he wanted to do is let me know he was going to be on vacation when I came on board, because my inboarding date kind of had changed. And he said, but I have you in very good hands with Henrika Buchanan. And I said, okay, no problem. I'm just happy you're not resigning. And he kind of looked at me like, what? So I had to tell him the background story. But I learned very quickly Henrika's leadership skills were amazing. She thinks outside the box, which sometimes you don't find that in the federal government or state government or local government. So I lean on her a lot. She is one of our senior, female minority leaders, and she is a leader in her own right. And so we look for that across our entire organization, because it's important to have different viewpoints from different. She's a Southern girl, but I swear to goodness, I think we were related in another lifetime, because we're very similar in many ways. But she brings a different background than I have, and so it's important to hear her voice at that table. So.
Well, that's good. We celebrate that, because, as we all sit here, 20, maybe 30 years ago, this would have been a different type of panel. It would not have been about women in power. It would have been about just specifically on a technical issue. So this is an opportunity really to show not only how women have moved up through the ladder or through an elevator, using an elevator to the top, but then the things that we do to reach back and make sure that we're not up there by ourselves. So great job. But you know what? Once you get to the top, you also have to deal with transitions. And many of us have gone high, had to step down, move over, grab another ladder. So our world is very transitional. And in that transition, we find transformation. So Polly, tell us a little bit about your changing world. You have a mayor that was running for president, then decided that was not what he wanted to do after all. And then there's going to be his administration coming to an end. So what does that look like for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think those of us who, particularly in city government, it is I think I will charitably describe it as a very dynamic political environment, very fast moving. And, those of you that have worked in different administrations know as an administration starts to get to the later years of their term, people start to think about what's going to happen next. Political opponents sort of swoop in. So it certainly can be challenging. But I would say, and I think a lot of you probably have had this experience, I've been in this job now almost 6 years. And, I am a big believer that if you can last in a job for a while, you really will start to become a master of what you're doing. And, sort of speaking of building that team, in a big agency, it can take a while for sort of people to come and go and to get your team really high performing. And for me, it was actually about in year 4 where I looked around at the team and said, I just have the dream team now. An amazing group of people, seasoned, diverse, bringing different viewpoints to the table. We can sort of complete each other's sentences, and really, we had hit that performing stage. And once you're there, it's a hard thing to give up. It's really, you feel like you're really accomplishing your mission.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we all have in common is that each of us has 2 children. Now, who would have thought? That's so with kids come responsibilities, and then there's also, as part of their growth, things happen in their lives that affect ours. So on the subject of transition, we've heard earlier this week that our dear Ronnie Hakem is retiring, but she's not going to be leaving us or leaving this industry. It's always going to be in your heart. But your announcement came after you had spent timeless hours and effort with your team building this new capital program that was rolled out, about $50 billion. So congratulations, New York MTA. And like Ginger Rogers, you did all that while you were dancing backwards in heels, because as you were working to put together that program with your team, you were also planning your daughter's wedding. So what was that like?
Right. So first, let me address Nuria's comment about the elevator to the top. For the younger people in this room, there is no elevator. There are a series of hard, circuitous stairs. And you start at the bottom, and you make your way up. So The people here have done nothing but work and work and work climbing those stairs. So, Nuria, you look great, but I know how much hard work is behind that. So, yes, transitions are interesting. New opportunities are interesting. In my life, I have been blessed to be married to the same man for 32 years. I have 2 beautiful children. As Nuria just alluded to, I got a 3rd son recently, easiest son I ever got. He just married into the family. But it is, you know, we often speak about that work-life balance, and I'm here to tell you there is no such thing as a work-life balance. There is work, there is life. Sometimes one takes precedence over the other. I'm at the point now where I'm taking what I've affectionately called my 60th birthday break, and I'm going to step back and just take a little break and try to be a good wife and mother, because too often in my family what we've said is, what this family needs is a good wife and a good mother. So, I'm going to take a moment to do that. But boy, it has been great. You know, Pat Foy is our chairman and CEO at the MTA, and he has shown such vision and leadership working with Governor Cuomo to put together this $51 billion capital program. And everybody in this room, we need your support, and we're counting actually on your support as we move into this legislative process later this year.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the consultants in the room are all salivating. So, you know, we talked about where we are today, but like everything else, we have experiences that we wish had been different. So, Jane, if you had a chance to tell your younger self something to kind of forewarn them of what they would encounter, what would you tell your younger self?
Wow, there's a couple of things, but one that really stood out in my mind, I'd like to say I was younger than I was when this happened. It was when I came back to the Hill and started working for Congressman Harris. What I would tell the younger set in the room is, don't think you know everything. Principals don't expect you to have the answer or the knowledge to know every single thing. What they expect is for you to find out, and they expect it to be right. So don't ever guess, because if you guess wrong, it's going to be really bad. So I thought, you know, Andy Harris is one of the quickest thinkers I've ever met across my entire lifetime. And he put me in charge of the education bill, and we were talking, it was all about student loans. And it was all about new student loans. And I thought, there's no way he's going to get me. I'm going to know everything there is about this bill before I go in and brief him. And I was like, I went in there thinking, I got him now. He's not going to be able to outsmart me. Well, I went through everything. He asked me questions. I was answering him right and left. I was so proud of myself. And then he said the one thing I hadn't thought of. What about existing loans? Does it impact existing loans? Now, I should have prepared for that. He's a father of 5, 2 of which were already in college. But he's a doctor and he's a congressman. I didn't even think he would have a student loan, but he apparently did. So, taught me to think the entire circle, right? So I said, I don't think it impacts current loans. He said, I don't pay you to think, I pay you to know. Go find out and come back and let me know. So it taught me, don't guess. Don't ever guess, because if a principal says something that you guessed, believe me, there'll be 10 people that will tell them right away that they were inaccurate or wrong. And the first phone call they're going to make is to you, and you're going to get it. Yeah. So luckily for me, it was just an encounter in the office, but that could go very, very bad. So just be accurate. Be honest. We don't expect you to know everything. We certainly don't know everything, and we don't expect you to know everything in that moment. So remember that.
That's a pretty good story. Thanks for sharing that. And so we just had Ronnie, so we'll ask Polly. Polly, where do you get your inspiration from? What drives that spark that keeps you going?
You know, I think I feel like I've been very lucky in my career, and it's advice that I often give people, and it's sort of intangible. When I was on Capitol Hill, because we're speaking about Capitol Hill, I would hire people who were, because I was a legislative director, so I would hire people who were healthcare experts or judiciary committee or you name it, but I would always sort of screen for another quality, which was, were they political junkies? Because Capitol Hill is a hard place to get things done. You have a lot more defeats than you have victories. And people who just sort of love the politics and the drama, they could last a lot longer with low pay and lots of abuse. They would stick it out. And you know, it's sort of been an insight for me in my career. When you do things that you find fascinating and that you're passionate about, that will get you out of bed every single morning,
Yes.
no matter how absolutely tough it is. And I do feel lucky. You know, one can meet people in life who they're passionate about a thing that they're not that good at, or they have a thing that they're really good at, but they can't actually make a living at it. When it all comes together, when you love it and you can make a living at it and you're good at it, then you know, you're one of the luckiest people in the world. So
Yeah.
I feel that way about being in this profession.
You're absolutely correct. Some of us need coffee. So, Ronnie, you know, one of the things that we also have to deal with is opening doors and closing doors. So how do you do that?
So, you know, I think, Jane, you spoke about having many different voices at the table, and I think that's critical. So in terms of opening doors and creating opportunities for people, you know, I've been very fortunate in being a consensus builder, a team builder, reaching out to different people in the organization, wanting to hear divergent voices at the table. You know, at the MTA, we talk about diversity and inclusion. The little sad known fact is that only 18% of our 72,000 workforce are women. And so I have looked out for women in the MTA team, and to make sure that their voices were heard at the table. I also reach out into our young and up-and-coming communities. There's a high school in Brooklyn, Transit Tech, and I've been fortunate enough to be invited there several times and speak to the students who are coming. These are teenagers, right? These are young teenagers, primarily minorities, primarily boys, but there are women there. And so I've had the ability to sort of connect with some of the girls coming up in this industry who are choosing to educate themselves at the high school level in some of the crafts that we need going forward. So part of it is about opening doors. I'm not a big door closer, to be honest with you. I have been able to maintain relationships throughout the different places I've been in this wonderful industry, and it has always inured to my benefit. And I think, you know, we talk more about transportation as a regional issue. And so my typical customer might actually be living in New Jersey. And what does he do? He gets on the Garden State Parkway, he pays a toll, he drives to a park and ride, he parks his car, he pays a fee for that. He gets on a New Jersey Transit bus. He comes into the Port Authority. Shout out to my friends at the Port Authority at the bus terminal. He gets downstairs. He gets on the 8th Avenue subway line to take the 8th Avenue to his job downtown. And so those customers don't care who's in charge of the different modes. They just want to make sure that everything is working. And that's the part that we have a responsibility to work across our agencies. And we no longer work in an environment where transit doesn't speak to DOT, doesn't speak to federal, doesn't speak to state. We have got to speak together because we have to solve all these problems on a regional basis.
Yeah. Very well said. Thank you for that. So we are now just a few months away from entering the third decade of this 21st century. So Jane, what are some of the interesting trends you can project for us? Other than elections.
I wish I could predict that. You know, what we have really focused and will continue to focus on through the next year and a half in this first term is what the future of transit really looks like and how innovation can play a critical role in that. You know, we talked about how we all have daughters. I have 2 daughters. They're both millennials. And let me tell you, they're extremely impatient. So they don't like to wait for anything, ever. So when, you know, they grew up with the cell phone in the hand, so they expect rapid information at their fingertips constantly. So the website's got to be very good. They've got to be able to find something within 5 minutes. If they can't find it within 5 minutes, it's terrible. So waiting for a bus for 30 minutes, it's just not in their, it's not in their wheelhouse. They're just never going to do it. And I've got one who's scared to death to get on the train, who is more of my country girl who works in Maryland for Governor Hogan doing communications and transportation. And my youngest working in Washington for Secretary Carson at HUD, and she loves the urban core, loves the train, doesn't want to ever drive, which, let me just tell you, if you ever drove with her, it's a good thing she's not behind the wheel. But she expects like to be able to have a seamless trip, and I think we have to get better at that. So they have to be able to know that, to your point, you know, getting on the train, that all should be seamless. It shouldn't be, I've got to pay a fee here to this person, a fee there, get a ticket there, I need a different, you know, app for this, I need a different payment system for that. It should be, I need to go from point A to point B, and how do I get there, how long will it take, and I can press this button, pay now, and then everything in the back will be paid. So if the Port Authority needs to be paid for something, the parking person needs to be paid, all that can be done in the back of the house and make that seamless. And I think that we have to start meeting and doing a little bit better job of trying to meet those customer demands, because they're only going to increase, because people at our age that didn't grow up with a cell phone in hand, you know, we're getting older, and a lot more coming behind us that did grow up using a cell phone. My girls have a 3-year-old, you know, sister now who can use the cell phone, and she watches videos on it. It's incredible at 3 what she already knows. And so that's only going to increase. So we need to do a better job of accessing technology to benefit our riders, because we can have the most beautiful system we want. And I was able to ride a lot of the systems when I was here. I was able to tour a lot of the things under construction. And we can have the most beautiful thing ever, but it won't matter if we don't have riders coming to get them and to ride them. And so we want to really be your partner and work with you to actually bring about those innovative systems, because we do know it's a risk and we all don't know what the future holds. But I can tell you what I do know is customer demands are going to continue to increase, because I've got 2 of them in my ear every night telling me so.
Well, you know, you touched on a very important topic, and that is creating this seamless experience for our customers. We still tend to be very local, very regional. Is there an opportunity for the Federal Transit Administration to start leading in that space and to help us kind of work closer together so that we don't have to listen to those experiences that others bring to us that they can do in their countries? You arrive at one country and you use one card and it takes you everywhere throughout that country.
Yeah, so USDOT is actually working across modes to do a complete trip. And Vince Valdez on my staff is working very closely on that. We also have our IMI grant packages out. Our applications actually are back in, so we're making those decisions. And those are a lot of you have heard of our mod sandbox. It includes that. It also includes automation and fare integration. So, and a lot of our transit agencies are making a lot of progress. Gary out in Dart has done a lot of work on that, as has many, many others. So, you know, how we get everybody talking together, using the same products, using the same systems, it's challenging because everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And so we're going to try to figure out a way that we can incentivize that at the federal level so that we can get everybody talking and using the same data, the same type of fare systems, so that we can create something that's regional and hopefully someday nationwide, that you can come to America and have one transit app, one type of payment system that you can navigate the entire country by. And that's what I mean when I said the other day, think big. We want to think big. Many other countries already have that.
Yeah, well, certainly as we try to move more and more people, New York is doing some very interesting things. Congestion pricing, tell us a little bit about how that's getting all ready and to kick off. either of you could
You
take
can
a shot.
start,
All right,
and
We'll
I'll
start with
follow up.
we'll start with where the congestion is.
Yes, the congestion is my job. We are, I know it's been talked about at this conference, obviously very excited that New York is going to be the first city in North America to try this. And it's a convergence of trends for sure, sort of trends that I think Ronnie and I both can speak to. You know, the transportation mix in the city is changing. You know, there is more and more of a desire for people to get out of their cars, for trying all these new modes, bikes, scooters, you name it. At the same time, cities like New York, this is true in San Francisco, Chicago, other places, are booming. I mean, New York right now, our population is 8.6 million and growing. It's the highest it's ever been in the city's history. We had like 63 million tourist visits last year, which is extraordinary.
And we ran into all of them last
Exactly.
night.
And if you see them all in Times Square.
They were all
And we
walking.
welcome you all. I mean, if you had come to New York 30 years ago, we had, you know, less than half that many tourists coming to the city. We've had incredible economic growth here, big job creation. Those are all terrific trends to have, no complaints. But it has produced, you know, and I often hear complaining about this, you know, traffic speeds in this midtown core where we are right now, 4.7 miles an hour. And so there's, you know, and that is really starting to have a drag on quality of life and economic productivity. On the transit side, and Ronnie can speak to this, a huge need to make major new investments in the transit system. And it produced a winning political formula for us up in Albany with the governor and the legislature, and the mayor came on board to take this really big step. And I think it'll be transformational on the MTA side, but for us sort of managing the city street side of the equation, we hope it'll be transformational too. It will give us a chance to open up more of our street space to those new modes that people want, to better bus service, to bikes, to more enjoyable pedestrian space, to cleaner air, to more roadway safety. We see some really big opportunities here.
Yes.
You know, it's amazing, Polly, when you think about what happened last spring as part of getting the governor's budget done and including congestion pricing as an element of that budget. It was this moment in time where you had the governor, the mayor, the legislature, all agreeing that something needed to be done to maintain an investment in the transit and transportation network. And so I mentioned the $51 billion capital program. It's a 5-year program, 2020. And the first $15 billion of that program is going to be out of these congestion pricing fees. So it's foundational for us as an element of investment in the MTA's transportation network. And while the bulk of the money is going to be reinvested in our city's bus and subway network, part of the money will also be supporting the Long Island Railroad and Metro North. So it is a very cohesive element of our program, and congestion affects all of us. It affects the air quality that we breathe. It affects the ability of our buses, and we're moving to electric buses now. And so everything matters. It truly is an interconnected system.
Yeah. And you know why this is exciting for us? Because then we'll all be able to come and borrow money from you.
No.
That'll be the day.
No.
We will spend every penny, not to worry. We're good at that in New York.
Okay, so we're going to change lanes or switch tracks now. So, Polly, tell us who is the person that has been the most influence in your life and doesn't know it?
Well, it's funny, Jane, I mean, in my professional life, Jane mentioned, you know, how much she admires Secretary Chow. I mean, it's interesting. I want to talk how much I admire Secretary Ray LaHood. And it's, you know, it's well known. I work for Chuck Schumer and others. I'm a Democrat.
We love him too. He's from Peoria.
I'm a Democrat from New York, but my joke is the nicest boss I ever had was a Republican from Peoria. And he wasn't only, it's true, you should clap. He was really, it's not only that he was the nicest boss. I mean, I have to say, I learned so much from his leadership style, and I've really, in a lot of ways, tried to emulate it. When you're on Capitol Hill, it's sort of, you have a sort of a tight-knit band of true believers you manage. It's very different. Many of you know who've been in senior positions in big agencies, where you have, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of people, very different leadership skills called upon. And Secretary LaHood came in as a Republican in a Democratic administration. He basically wound up having a whole set of political appointees who came from Democratic states and Democratic elected officials, and mostly didn't know us. And, I think was extraordinary in taking a big leap of faith in saying, this is my team, I trust you, I'm going to delegate to you, I know you're professionals, I'm going to let you do, the amazing work that I know you're capable of. He had huge faith in us. I think he had terrific leadership instincts about when to step in and intervene and sort of set a course, but when also to just, in the old cliche, take his hands off the steering wheel and let the professionals get the job done. And for me, it had a really profound effect. And I feel even every day in this job, sometimes I will actually say, what would Ray LaHood do? And try and emulate him.
There we go. So Jane, what do you believe is your favorite characteristic of a woman leader?
Probably the fact that we're used to managing multiple things at one time. Many of us are married, we are mothers, we are active in our career, and we can balance 16 things at once. And I really appreciate that about our women leaders. People say, when do you sleep? Your schedule is just crazy. I inherited that actually from my mother. One of my daughters has the same personality and the same energy level. But I think, Secretary Chow also works at that level. And so, when you look at other women leaders, I think we inherently run faster because we've had to. And so when you look at how we lead, I think, I'm inspired by how much we can do when sometimes it can still be more difficult for us to do it. And so I'm inspired by the fact that we keep going. Sometimes it's harder than others, but we keep, moving up and helping others as we go. I think that's incredibly important as we do our jobs.
Thank you for that. And I think that there are many women in the audience that needed to hear that as well. So Ronnie, what is your favorite characteristic of yourself?
I don't need a lot of sleep. I mean, Jane, apparently you do get some sleep.
Ambient.
We were just talking about multitasking, and I think that's something that many of us in this room have as a common characteristic and a common trait. But perhaps one of the things that is important when you are multitasking is the ability to prioritize and to constantly look at what's on your to-do list and your bucket of activities and make moves and be flexible and be nimble about what's important, because what's important today may change tomorrow and may change the day after. And so, one of the things that I'm always looking at is that bigger radar screen. What's on it, what needs to get done, and how do I interact in the course of the day? And Nuria, I know you do this as well, which is the ability to make adjustments to how we're spending our time.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Flexibility.
I just want to add one, because I just saw, it was in a magazine, I think it speaks to this discussion. It had buckets. It said family, friends, career, fitness, outside interests, sleep, pick 3.
Right.
So appropriate. we need to put that on a T-shirt and sell it. It'll sell. Thanks for that. Okay, so now we're just going to do a little bit of a lightning rod, because I think it's important that we give people something to remember us by. What cheers you up?
My girls, easy.
Yeah, okay. That was an easy one.
Yeah.
This one's for Ronnie. If you could sing a song in American Idol, what would it be?
Oh my God.
Okay, Nuria. There
We
will
wanna know
be
what you would
revenge.
sing.
I'm not sure when, but there will be revenge. I'm
did
a
it
New
my way.
Yorker. I'd have to say New York, New York.
Obvious. There you go. Give that lady a standing ovation. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Oh.
Ayn Rand.
Do you have time to read?
I do have time to read. I mean, I think one of the favorite books probably of many people in this room, I have actually read it twice, I'm not lying, is The Power Broker.
Okay.
Which
Oh,
I
wow,
read it
that's a great
after
book.
college, and then when I took this job, I reread it because it turns out I inherited a lot of that stuff Robert Moses built. And let me tell you, it's not easy.
No. So if your life was a book, what genre would it be?
Wow. I'm with you, Ronnie. Revenge is coming, Nuria. I don't know. Maybe historic fiction, because that's my favorite genre. I love Ken Follett, so I'd love to read that. I would hope it would be that.
Oh, that should be fun. And okay, so I hope you've taken some time to travel. And if you did, where'd you go and what can you share with us?
I did this summer take a fantastic trip. Actually, I called it Asheville to Nashville. My husband and I went to Asheville for a couple days. We went hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains, which were beautiful. And then we spent a few days in Nashville. And I will admit, we stayed out for us rather unusually till 2 or 3 in the morning, listening to all the amazing music down there.
What about you, Ronnie?
We recently got back from a family vacation to Iceland. Fantastic place, beautiful country, amazing policies. There are only 350,000 people in the whole country. So for me, it was refreshing. And probably the most excruciatingly physical activity was ice crimping up a glacier. Not my favorite kind of activity, but boy, when you got to the top, it was spectacular.
I can only imagine. And those 350,000 live on your block.
They do.
What about you?
I was able to go to Florence, Italy, and visit my daughter who was studying abroad, not this summer, but last summer. And she had never been to Europe before. And I flew my older daughter over to meet us. She's a little anxious, so I was already in country. So she had to fly from the United States over to Rome. I met her in Rome, and I had the worst feeling because I realized there was more than one airport in Rome. And I was like, oh my God, I hope she's at the right airport because she is going to literally lose it if I'm not at the airport when she arrives. Everything worked like clockwork. I taught them a lot about transit while we were there. So we got on the train. We looked a little bit like the hillbillies. She and I had to go from Rome to Florence. And then we went back to Rome for the day. And we got off the train. And I had to take a call from DC. And I said, and they're like, aren't we going to the Trevi Fountain? I said, yeah, we're going to go over there to the map. And they're like, why? I said, because we're going to need to know what bus we need to get on. And they're like, the bus? That map? Like they said it's in Italian. I said, look for the star. It'll say like, that's like you're here. And then just do by color. So it kept them busy for like 30 minutes while I was on the So they're learning all about transit while we travel. So, and I have to say, it was really interesting to watch. So, because they are dyslexic in all faith. As a disclaimer, so, directions can be a little challenging, but they did figure it out. It took us twice, but we finally did get on the right bus to get to the Trevi Fountain, and it was worth it. So we had fun. It was a great trip. We saw a lot of Italy while we were there, 10 days, so it was fun having them experience Europe for the first time with me.
That was a great story.
I wish I had it on video.
I was going to say, I think we're going to tape this and send it to them. So let's talk about success and how you define success, Ronnie.
It sounds very trite to say at the end of the day you want to feel like you did a good job, personal fulfillment. I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to use the word happy. I think to be successful should equal being happy in what you're doing. And I have had a wonderful career and have been satisfied and been able to say that there have been a few exceptional days, but by and large, they have been filled with happiness and joy. And that's, Nuria, how I would define success.
Your definition of success?
I can't top that one.
Thank you.
But I'll give a little version of how I knew I had arrived. So it may surprise the people in this room to know that New York City DOT Commissioner, not necessarily a household name in these parts. So one morning I'm on the subway, and this very well-dressed woman looks over at me and she says, are you, I'm waiting for it, Ronnie Hakem? And, I thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, I wish I was wrong.
Oh, no, you don't.
I said, I understand the confusion. We middle-aged women with glasses all look alike. But it was a compliment. Obviously, she had sort of conflated some women in transportation who obviously were people she thought were doing good things in New York City.
There's a local news channel who's done that
Yes.
too, where my face or Polly's face will come up and the other person's name will be on the banner.
We do all look alike.
What does success look to you?
I think, mine is a little bit more narrow. If I look at it, with my career today, it would be progress. Making progress every day to improve transportation for America's communities. I mean, if you ever doubt why you do what you do, when you pick up the phone and you actually call someone who just received a grant from us, I've had people get kind of emotional on the phone. And it reminds me just how important the work we do is to our local communities. And so, making those calls has become something I've done all the time, and it really is a great reminder for us of what we do. And so for me, it's progress. It's being able to make progress across the country to bring transit to America's communities and to improve it where it is.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so now that we're coming towards the close of this session, I think that there are many here who would love to get just that one nugget of advice from you all. So what would that takeaway be?
Bring it. Every day.
That is good advice. I'll give a little slice of advice that I particularly like to give to women. It's applicable to all, but we've been talking about our Capitol Hill years, and when I look back on them, I think the one regret I had is sort of a version of bring it, which is I think at times I sort of lacked ambition. I think I left money on the table, and it's sort of that version, particularly for you starting out in your careers. Go ahead, go for the brass ring, be confident, step up and take those big challenges. You will not regret it.
Yeah, take note. Those all work.
If you do the small things well, people come find you for the big things, and be ready for the next opportunity. Jobs keep finding me, and so I tell my younger staff when I'm talking to people entering their careers, I say, you never know what opportunities are going to be presented in some of the most mundane tasks that you really don't want to do. So I'm going to borrow a story from Nicole Nason. She and I just did an event, for WTS, and one of the things that she's used over the years is she was on Capitol Hill. She was an attorney working for a committee, so she was not a junior staffer by any means, but they were really crushed for time, and they said, "Can you go to the flag office and pick up the flags for us?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And she's thinking in her head, "Why me? I'm an attorney on this committee. Why do I have to go pick up the flags? I didn't even know there was a flag office." So she had to ask somebody where it is, and she goes and she picks them up, and she said, "By the way, what is this? What do you guys do here?" And they looked at her like, "You don't know?" And she said, "No, what do you do?" "I'm picking up flags for this chairman." And they said, "We fly flags in honor of people, in memory of people, in honor of their service a lot of times." And she said, "Oh, I had no idea." So many years later, she's from this area actually, and her dad was a firefighter for many years, worked for the fire department. And when I think he retired at 50 years of service, she flew a flag for him. And she said, "My father was a tough New York, New Jersey kind of guy. He didn't cry." And she said that was one of the only times I ever saw my father cry, was when I presented that flag to him. And she said, if I hadn't taken on that mundane task and found that out, I would have never known that we even did that on Capitol Hill. So you never know what kind of information you might learn by just doing something that you've been asked to do, regardless of what your stature is in your job.
What a terrific story. Thank you for sharing that. So here's my takeaway. Make the choice to take a chance or your life will never change. Let's thank these wonderful women.
Thanks, Sarah.